Dan, I feel really lucky talking to you right now. I don't know any other reporter that has covered Donald Trump, his finances, his legal challenges more intimately than you. So, from that lens, what do you think is missing from the national conversation here?
Well, I think that the big thing is that this is just one of his major legal challenges that he's facing right now. And of course, he also has challenges beyond his legal ones. His real financial challenges right now. And when you take all of those things and add them all up, and you say, okay, this is a guy who is facing right now his first of potentially four criminal trials. You get a really, really sort of dark, gloomy picture of the man. And it's easy when you get into the news cycle to sort of laser in on what's going on at the moment, whether it's this trial or whether it's the previous civil fraud trial. And certainly, it doesn't. We're not going to have the other trials before the election, but if those were to be held down the line, you zoom in on that moment. But I do think that a lot of times in zooming in, people fail to kind of step back and say, here's the overall picture. And it's really, it's a remarkable story, one that we haven't seen before in U.S. history, not just, one indictment, but four, and somebody coming back and trying to making a really legitimate run at the presidency again. Meanwhile, he's got this complicated, business with, fraud allegations and penalties of hundreds of millions of dollars. Any one of these threads would be a history-making thing, and yet you have it all colliding at once. It's really a fascinating moment.
That's really interesting because when you do step back and you look at this as a whole, the characters of Stormy Daniels, Michael Cohen, they've been trailing Trump really for years now. So when you think about all of these problems that he faces, these legal challenges, financial troubles, and other, is this the one that could hurt him the most, do you think?
This particular trial?
Yes.
Well, just given the timing, the fact that it's likely going to be the only criminal trial that happens before the election, I think that you could make that argument. Now, it depends on what you're measuring the damage by. The civil fraud trial where he's facing, penalties of hundreds of millions of dollars will undoubtedly have a lasting effect on his business. That's something that, if you go to jail for a couple of months, okay, that's, a big blow to the ego and it damages your reputation. But, at the end of that time, you get out and you can go on, living your life with all of the same luxuries essentially that you had before. If, however, you have hundreds of millions of dollars stripped from you, that's a real tangible thing that's hard to get back. If you lose the election and then you are facing, additional criminal trials with potentially greater penalties, then you could point to those and say, really, those are the most serious. So I think that for different reasons, each one of these legal trials, each one of these trials could, in hindsight, be viewed as the most significant. And we won't know which of these are going to have the biggest impact until probably a couple of years from now.
Obviously, everyone's waiting with bated breath for the verdict, but between now and whenever that is, what are you keeping your eye out on?
Well, of course, like everybody else, we'll be waiting to see what happens in the courthouse. What are the notes that are being passed back and forth? Of course, Trump is likely to be sounding off on his own accord on, Truth Social, and so that's going to be interesting to watch. But, it's one of the interesting things about this trial and really all trials is that you have so much information coming during all of the witnesses and the opening statements and the closing statements. It's like a fire hose of information. And then it just all stops. And you know that you're at the most important moment, but the flow of information is virtually nothing. And so at this point, all you can really do is just sit back and wait to see what happens. There's not, you're trying to read the tea leaves through, little bits here and there, but we're done seeing most of the information until the jury comes back in with a verdict.